The U.S. economy hits 3% quarter two growth. So this is awesome. This is big news for Trump and his continued success and his legacy as the greatest president of my lifetime. The U.S. economy recorded a 3% annualized growth rate in the second quarter of 2025, exceeding forecasts of around 2.6%. That's huge. This rebound from a 0.5 contraction in the first quarter was driven by reduced imports and increased customer spending, while inflation eased to 2.5% as measured by the PCE price index. JD Vance posted just 9 hours ago, Trump economy keeps defying the experts' strong growth. The experts, right? But here's the video.
Up 3%, up 3%, up 3%, up 3%. Better than expected. That would be the highest level since the third quarter of 24 when it was up 3.1%. On the consumption side, up 1.4, very close to estimates. Up 1.4 would be the best since the last quarter of 24.
So even CNBC can't deny the numbers, right? Even though they think math is racist, or the Democrats do. There's no hiding it. You know what I mean? And I love how Trump's plan to, get out of debt, to pay off the debt, isn't to just simply pinch pennies. It's to outgrow it. And that's the plan. You know what I mean? More jobs that provide higher wages, better benefits, promotes more families, more workers. We're simply going to outgrow the debt and under Trump's plan, right? And so this is great. We need more of these reports to keep, quarter three to continue the growth. And I think with Trump's tariffs and the way that people are gaining trust in the economy, that they'll be more bold. We've seen a lot of foreign investments into the United States. Factory building is coming back to the United States, and it's a bright outlook for Americans who are really trying to work and put in the time to build their future and not just rely on the government for the handout, right? I love it. So the Gateway Pundit put this article out just in. The Fed expected to keep interest rates steady after meeting today. Trump hammers Jerome Powell, citing way better than expected GDP numbers. And so I've been keeping you updated on the battle between Trump and Jerome Powell lately, and this is the latest, right? So the Federal Reserve is expected this is disheartening, and this is what we've come to expect out of Jerome Powell. The Federal Reserve is expected to keep interest rates steady for the fifth time since December, despite massive pressure from President Trump on Fed Chair Jerome Powell and a soaring economy. I mean, this is open, blatant warfare on the American people in the face of growth that exceeded the expectation by like 2.6%, I think is what it was, 2.4%. Yeah, 2.6%. This is a fireable offense in its own right. Okay, so Trump is saying that Powell said, congratulations, the country is doing really well. And I got that to mean that I think he's going to start recommending lower rates, Trump told reporters. So Trump had the conversation with Powell last week, and he went and inspected the new building that the Fed is building that's way over budget, and had the conversation with Powell, and Powell led Trump to believe that interest rates are going to come down, but actions speak louder than words, apparently. And so Trump also hammered Jerome Powell in a statement this morning, highlighting new GDP numbers and the lack of inflation. Too late, must now lower the rate, no inflation, let people buy and refinance their homes, the president demanded. And so here's the post from Trump himself. Q2 GDP just out 3%, way better than expected. 12-member Federal Open Market Committee is meeting today and will release a policy statement at 2 p.m. Eastern, which we didn't see that report yet. Maybe they included it here in an update. But the meeting remains shrouded in secrecy after a lawsuit from investment firm Azoria Capital which argues that FOMC meetings are illegally closed to the public and sought to bar the FOMC from closing its next meeting, but was shot down by far left district court judge Farrell Howell. Of course, another lefty radical judge. It's just serving themselves, serving the Democrat Party, and certainly not serving the American people. It's the FOMC's July 29 and 30, 2025 meeting as is allowed to proceed in secret. If the FOMC's July 29 and 30th, 25 meeting is allowed to proceed in secret, it will unlawfully deprive Azoria and the American public of timely access to deliberations that may reveal improper political motives behind the FOMC's decision. The lawsuit read, it also outlines concern that the Fed is maintaining high interest rates to undermine President Donald Trump and his economic agenda. It's exactly what it is. Thank you, Jay. And that's what I'll certainly do. However, attorneys for the Federal Reserve argued that opening their meeting to the public would irreparably harm the nation's economy and would not be in the public interest. Well, I mean, we're the voters. They're so much smarter and better than us that we just can't have access to the information. It's not like giving us the information and having transparency is going to actually change their actions. They're the ones that make the decisions, right? So, you know, the difference is the thing they're trying to hide is the fact that they know the American people would demand better. And so here's James Fishback post. Breaking Jerome Powell's lawyers just told a federal court that our demand to make next week's Fed meeting public would not be in the public interest. Seriously, how does transparency not serve the American public? What is the Federal Reserve hiding? And he included the document here where it says, in contrast, the disclosures plaintiff seeks. Oops, I shouldn't have clicked that. Seeks could irreparably damage the nation's economy, and granting such relief would not be in public interest. It's because we would have the truth and we would demand lower interest rates, and that these people quit enriching themselves and playing political games against, their enemies. They hate the American people, and they're going to use us as collateral against Donald Trump. It's bullshit. So my investment firm, James Fishback, also included my investment firm, Invest Azoria, just sued Jerome Powell in federal court for violating federal transparency law. The government in the Sunshine Act of 1976 requires that every portion of every meeting of an agency shall be open to public observation. The Federal Reserve is one of these agencies, and under Jerome Powell's leadership, the Fed continues to block Americans from observing its meetings, allowing the Fed to operate in the shadows and set interest rates on factors not directly tied to economic data. I am deeply concerned that the Federal Reserve under Chair Jerome Powell is maintaining high interest rates to undermine President Donald Trump and its economic agenda to the detriment of the American citizens and to our economy. Next week, for the fifth consecutive time this year, Jerome Powell's Federal Reserve will meet behind closed doors to set interest rates that affect every American with a mortgage, credit card, or loan. Our lawsuit seeks a temporary restraining order to block next week's Fed meeting from happening in secret. If the D.C. District Court denies our emergency request, we are prepared to appeal to the D.C. Circuit and, if necessary, seek immediate intervention from the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay, and here's the video. It's from Fox News.
Welcome back. Now, this Azoria Capital filing a lawsuit today against Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell, alleging that the central bank is violating transparency law.
But, he could find that one on the WNBA court. It's hot green, right? It's fluorescent green. I don't know if you guys saw that. I'm going to show you guys later. Sorry, I derailed that. Here we go. I'm just responding to chat.
Welcome back. Now, this Azoria Capital filing a lawsuit today against Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell, alleging that the central bank is violating transparency law. The suit in part says this: Azoria believes the Federal Reserve is violating federal transparency law, and we are asking a federal judge to immediately block next week's Federal Reserve meeting from happening behind closed doors. Azoria is demanding the court order that the Fed to keep the meeting open as the company sounds the alarm.
See, I'm not the only one that can't read perfectly. The quarter order
on recent policy decisions, saying Azoria is deeply concerned that the FOMC under Chairman Powell is maintaining high interest rates to undermine President Donald J. Trump and his economic agenda. Joining me now is the CEO himself, Azoria CEO James Fishback. James, thanks very much for being here. So you think this is all political?
I do, Maria. Good morning. The truth of the matter is that inflation is now at a 4-year low under President Trump's leadership. 5 consecutive better than expected, lower than expected inflation readings. And the Federal Reserve refuses to lower rates from a 20-year high. That is a life-altering decision that affects Americans all over the country. They can't get a mortgage. They can't get a home. They can't start or grow their family. Azoria is now suing Jerome Powell in federal court this morning to demand that next week's meeting be open to public observation as federal transparency law requires.
Well, I mean, they always have meetings behind closed doors. So this meeting next week is no different than any other meetings, though.
Well, the fact of the matter is, the fact that they've always broken the law does not excuse them from breaking the law. There's a couple Supreme Court precedents that have moved in our favor, specifically the overturning of the Chevron doctrine. But I got to tell you the truth, Maria, Americans are frustrated. They do not understand why Jerome Powell is being too late. They don't understand that despite inflation being at a 4-year low, that the Federal Reserve is refusing to lower rates. And so the public, Azoria, the president of the United States, can't even know why the Federal Reserve is not acting in accordance with the data. And so the only thing that can be done here is for a federal judge to step in, to issue a temporary restraining order against Jerome Powell and to block him from having next week's meeting happen behind closed doors. That's what we're demanding the court do.
You know, it's just so many implications here. It's not just, and this is a big one that you just mentioned, that a mortgage is out of reach for so many people, but it's also the impact on the cost of capital for the government. I mean, you know, President Trump has been talking about this $36+ trillion in debt that the U.S. faces. He's been talking about his goal to balance the budget at some point. And how do you do that when we're actually spending more money just on the interest to carry that debt than we do on defense spending? So do you think that Chairman Powell should be looking at that and working that into his mandate? I mean, I know that the mandate of the Fed is just unemployment and inflation, but isn't the cost of debt part of the growth of the economy? Because if it's costing us so much money to carry this debt, it is impacting growth.
That is exactly right. And that's what needs to be factored into the economic model, Maria, that Jerome Powell seems to be neglecting, is that when high interest rates actually stifle economic growth, hurt home buying, hurt the ability for the government to deliver the balanced budget that we all know that President Trump can. The president has spoken about this. For every point that interest rates are above natural, it's costing taxpayers $315 billion a year. That is $3 trillion over the next decade. That is $31,000 for every single American tax-paying household over the next decade, because Jerome Powell is not doing the right thing and looking at the data and lowering rates accordingly. Azoria runs an anti-DEI ETF. It's called SPXM. And what we see in the marketplace is that investors from all over the world cannot allocate capital properly if they don't know what the Federal Reserve is going to do next. The American public, businesses, and investors deserve to know what the Federal Reserve's deliberations are at any given point in time. That's why we're suing Jerome Powell in federal court this morning. I'm confident, Maria, the court will side with our arguments, but I got to tell you the truth. We are prepared to immediately appeal any decision, and if necessary, ask the Supreme Court to intervene before next Tuesday's meeting. Jerome Powell has to come out of the shadows. He cannot meet in secret. President Trump was right when he said in 2017 that the government needs to be open, honest, and accountable to the American people. And Azoria is standing up to President Trump's aim on that point.
And of course,
an amazing statement. I love that this dude is suing, trying to get the transparency that the law has already precedented, essentially, right? That we read here in the 1976 Act, where I can't remember where it was, but it's amazing that Jerome Powell has basically gone rogue, and yeah, so a lot of people on X today are posting "Fire Jerome Powell," and I think he deserves to be fired. I mean, another 3 months is of higher interest rates than it should be is just a money grubbing tactic that you and I, our fellow Americans, our children, our grandchildren, bear the weight of. And, you know, if you remember back in Trump's first term, interest rates got so low and everybody had money in their pocket. Everybody's refinancing. Everybody's buying houses. It was great. We were thriving as a society. And under Biden, everything got locked up, right? I mean, eggs were $19 a dozen. You know what I mean? Like, the memes, I know what I got, were cracking me up. And you guys are cracking me up in chat. If you guys are on X and you're missing the YouTube chat, I apologize. You might want to come over to YouTube because you guys are on fire tonight here on the YouTube chat. Also up on Rumble. But man, you guys are cracking me up. And we're going to get into the story a little bit later. Evil Elmo says, I can't name anything that the government touches that has made something better. That's true. TNT says he dropped rates for the election, but not when indicators dictate it. Yeah, exactly. Just playing political games. He tried to get Biden reelected, right? So yeah, this dude's a scumbag for the Democrat Party, and it's unfortunate that Trump is the one that appointed him. It really is. It's unfortunate these people are just so freaking ungrateful. Let me close some of these down here. Oh yeah, this is what I just opened up. Okay, I close that one off too. So this has led to the Federal Reserve seeing the biggest rebellion in 30 years as rate cut feud grows amid Trump's fury. The Federal Reserve has decided to hold benchmark interest rates steady once again, and not all members of the Open Market Committee are in agreement. For the first time since 1993, more than one Fed governor voted against the Fed Chair Jerome Powell in the committee's majority decision. The dissenters, Governors Christopher Waller and Michelle Bowman, were both appointed by Trump, and like the president, support cutting rates. I mean, like the American people. You know, I regret not refinancing my house to a lower interest rate whenever Trump was president in that first term. I could be saving like 2-3% per month or whatever it is, because I think it got into the twos, and I think I'm in the fours. So I mean, that's unfortunate. But if it drops again, I'm refinancing. I'm going to save some money and take advantage of the greatest president in my lifetime. For months, Trump has pressured Powell to cut rates, currently between 4.25 and 4.5%, threatened to fire him, appoint a shadow chair, and even harangued him over the cost of improvements to the Fed's offices, which is way, way, way over budget. But this afternoon, Trump lamented that we should be the lowest interest rate, and we're not. We're keeping the rates high, and it's hurting people from buying houses. We don't want that, he told reporters at the White House. Let's see your quote. We're keeping the rates high, and it's hurting people from buying houses. We don't want that, he told reporters at the White House. The latest gross domestic product, GDP data released this morning revealed that the economy grew 3% in the April through June period. Trump took the opportunity to state that the positive figures should push the Federal Reserve into lowering interest rates. And it's bullshit. Like, while everything's thriving, they're going to get the higher rate. Just taking advantage of us, like I said before. It's really man, that's bad. But must now lower the rate. No inflation. Let people buy and refinance their homes, the president wrote in a post on Truth Social. The Fed's statement on their July decision took a more muted approach. Although swings in the net exports continue to affect the data, recent indicators suggest the growth of economic activity moderated in the first half of the year, the committee stated. The unemployment rate remains low. The labor market conditions remain solid. Inflation remains somewhat elevated. Markets remain positive, with the S&P 500 up 0.25% and the NASDAQ up 0.45% following the announcement. Hot on the heels of stronger than expected GDP growth figures for Q2, the Federal Reserve has held interest rates steady for a fifth consecutive meeting, Isaac Stell, investment manager at the Wealth Club, said. Despite the sustained pressure, Jerome Powell and his deputies have once again defied the president's wishes and the American people's and chosen independence over political capitalization. Wall Street has begun to price in a rate cut in September, but Powell insisted on Wednesday that no future decisions have been set. Right, he's going to hold out again. If he does this after the third quarter, this is going to be bad. But let's see here. Federal interest rate since 2011. Man, look at that right there. That was Trump. That was all Trump. Good Lord. Open Market Committee members, Jerome Powell, Bowman, and Christopher Waller. They're the rebels. And you got the rest of these folks. We don't do that in advance. We'll be talking about the information into consideration and all other information we get as we make our decision. Contenders are currently, it's bullcrap that one man or one stupid committee that's unelected can determine the interest rates that we pay. The Fed needs to be abolished, right? Get rid of all three-letter agencies, in my opinion. But contenders are currently competing for favor as Trump holds an apprentice-style competition to select the next Fed chair to take over for Jerome Powell's terms. When Jerome Powell's term ends in May of next year, firing Powell would likely cause a rout in financial markets, who insist the independence of the Fed is critical for stability. I don't think it would. I think everybody can see the writing on the wall now that he's a detriment. What's up, Andrea? That he's a detriment. Get somebody better in there. I don't think the markets will react the way that this person is speculating. But Kevin Hassett, one of Trump's closest economic advisors, is emerging as a serious contender, the Wall Street Journal reported. I don't know anything about that guy. Maybe we'll look into him here in the future. But former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh is also allegedly angling for the position. Trump passed him over for the role 8 years ago when he nominated Powell. And here's just a statement from the Federal Reserve, I think is what it is. Although swings in the net imports continue to affect the data, recent indicators suggest that growth of economic activity moderated in the first half of the year. The unemployment rate remains low and the labor market conditions remain solid. Inflation remains somewhat elevated. Like what about that indicates keeping it the same or raising it or whatever? It all seems to indicate to me that the rate should come down. I'm not a professional on this, but this is crazy. The commitment seeks to achieve maximum employment and inflation at the rate of 2% over the longer run. Uncertainty about the economic outlook remains elevated. The committee is attentive to the risk of both sides of a dual mandate. In support of its goals, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25-4.5%. In considering the extent of the timing of additional adjustments to the target range for federal funds rate, the committee will ... Right. And then, so Chuck Schumer comes out and, Benjamin, it's good to see you. You're from the Cool Vic channel. I recognize you from over there. Let's see here. So Chuck Schumer, like I said, has responded. What? Chuck Schumer calls QT GDP numbers a mirage? Quote, some ominous numbers lurk under the hood. Of course. Right. And this guy is just a face of evil. I mean, look at this dude. Jay mentions that keeping the rates high slows growth 100%, and that's what they want to do. They're afraid that Trump is literally going to go down as one of the best presidents of this century, and the Democrats can't have that. But yeah, you're totally right. Let's see here. So, the United States GDP increases at an annual rate of 3% in April, May, and June. Turnaround. Okay, so a turnaround from the first quarter of the year, where GDP decreased around 0.5%, but Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer claimed the numbers are a bad sign. And this is what the Democrat people, the sheep, will cling on to. They'll cling to this. They'll ignore their own eyes and their own life experience, and they'll believe what Chuck Schumer said. A report from the Commerce Department finds that the numbers primarily reflect decreases in foreign imports and an increase in customer spending. So Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick celebrated the news on Wednesday. Bessent real GDP grew 3% in Q2, surpassing expectations by 2.6%. I'll add a huge percentage. Consumer spending is up and inflation is cooling. This is what an America First economy looks like, and the best is yet to come. Yeah, it's on the way. It's on its way. It's not there. Yet. It's not there yet, but it's on its way to what an America First economy looks like. I think let Trump finish the the trade deals. He's putting pressure on India now, because India has been basically just buying up everything from Russia. They have super high tariffs on the United States, and we're trying to put pressure on Russia, and basically their main thing is they sell energy to these countries, and if we can siphon off some of that and replace that with American energy that we were exporting under Donald Trump in his first term, that hurts Russia's economy big time, bigly. So Lutnick said the GDP surged to 3% and Trump economy has officially arrived. Biden's first quarter is behind us and the growth is already accelerating. President Trump's tariffs policies have drawn historic investments and opened up global markets for U.S. businesses. Congratulations, America, 3% today, and we're just getting started. So yeah, pat on the back, do your victory lap, and then get right back to work and make it better for the third quarter, make it better for the year, and then continue for the next 4 years. Let's crush it for the American citizens. Schumer on Wednesday cast doom on the numbers, claiming that the ominous numbers lurk under the hood. Okay. Quote, Donald Trump's tariffs are weighing down the U.S. economy. He didn't give any examples on that, by the way. Spiking costs for small businesses and families alike. And if Donald Trump, well, I guess he gives a little example, they're spiking costs for small businesses. But and if Donald Trump keeps up the chaos, the dangers for the economy will continue to get worse, he said, which I don't believe. It might have been a little bit difficult for a little bit, but it's already bounced back so fast, and faster than I think most people expected, maybe even Trump himself. And you don't grow without pain and struggle. Pain and struggle creates growth, just like working out. You know what I mean? But however, his scripted remarks did not mention the massive success of Trump's tariffs, which are bringing billions of dollars of new business investment and hundreds of billions of tariff revenues into the United States. And that's ignoring the fact that trillions have been dedicated to coming into the United States that didn't exist before from our allies and other foreign nations and stuff like that due to these, negotiations. Here's Schumer here talking, and I know. It's like nails on a chalkboard.
And while the Trump administration will try to wave rosy headlines about the Q2 number, today's GDP number is in fact a mirage because some ominous numbers lurk under the hood. Business investment plunged in the second quarter by 3.1%. The fact that business investment plunged so starkly is very troubling. It shows that already businesses are worried about growing their operations, worried about hiring more workers, worried about trading with their international partners, and worried in general about the future. And this number is another data point in a larger pattern. Donald Trump's tariffs are weighing down the U.S. economy, spiking costs for small businesses and families alike. And if Donald Trump keeps up the chaos, the dangers for the economy will continue to get worse.
I mean, that's already not aging well. This dude is a joke. But yeah, I mean, what more do you expect from the Democrat Party? They're gonna, like I said multiple times, they're gonna resist Trump at every turn. And at this point, we should expect nothing less. The funny thing is we all know better, and they're just making their party, putting their party in a worse position as we approach. Well, not really approaching the midterms yet, but every month that goes by, the Democrats aren't doing anything for their party, and they don't even have a front runner for anything. Kamala Harris just backed out or announced that she's not going to be running for governor of California because that's basically a death sentence for your political career. We're witnessing Gavin Newsom just circle around the toilet drain and circle around the toilet as he, will eventually just be washed away to oblivion,